Hello everyone, first of all thank you for watching this video. If you are someone who has not subscribed my YouTube channel, please do, and we are starting new batch on Business Analyst very soon. The topic for today is what is API. I'll be discussing about API from the standpoint of Business Analyst. Okay, so first of all, API, acronym of API is Application Programming Interface. Especially these APIs will be used in the project when there is a integration projects. As a business analyst, you will be often gathering requirements from the stakeholders. There will be situation where stakeholders will also confirms you the requirements to get from one system to another system. So this is where as a business analyst you need to have little idea about how API works from system 1 to system 2, how the data is fetching. You need to have a thorough idea so that you can gather proper requirements on API. So today I have one scenario I have considered. So as of now, the screen which you are screening, the screen which you are, the screen which you are able to see, I have included two screenshots. One is from application called ICICI, and other one is called HDFC Bank. Okay. So first of all, you can consider these as a system one. Okay, system one, and the HDFC Bank you can consider these as a system two. Okay. So yeah, let me add system 1 and system 2. Okay, system 1 and system 2. So in the real time, how the stakeholders will provide you the requirement is, suppose from the system 1 in the user ID, after entering the user ID by the user, it should also include or show in the system 2 with the new field called new user ID. Let's imagine there is no field called new user ID. The stakeholder is requesting in the system to that we want to have a new field. In that field, this user ID which is entering in the system 1 should auto update in the system 2. Let's imagine this is the requirement. Okay. As of now, there is no field called new user ID, but stakeholder is expected. Let's imagine new user ID field. Okay, no new user ID field. Okay, as of now, yeah, I have added. Okay, now the requirement is whatever the user is entering in the user ID, the requirement is from the stakeholder, it should also update auto in the new user ID. So this new user ID we were created newly. So the stakeholder is requesting in the system too, they want to have a new user ID field, and in that field, the same user ID should auto update here. Let's imagine in the user ID there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is mentioned by one of the user, and the same ID should get updated in the new user ID of system 2. Okay. So for example, yeah. So this is a requirement. Now, as a BA, first of all, your duty is to understand what is source system and target system. See, from where the data we were receiving, we will usually call it as source system. Okay, source system. Sys- So actually, this is from where we are getting the data, right? So we will be considered as source system. Okay, and the data where the system is getting stored, we will be called as target system. Okay, system one, from where the data was receiving, from the where the data was sending off, we will call it as source system, and from where the system is receiving or storing the data, we call them as target system. Now as a stakeholder, I mean from the as a business analyst, you gather requirements clearly on the API, source and target system, what is the field and what data that need to be uh, send and receive the data you have able to capture. Now the next thing is you should do the data mapping. So as a business analyst, it's also essential for you to do a data mapping, because this will help the IT team to understand the clarity, like from the backend point of view, from where the data need to get and from where the data need to store, and if there is any business tools that are applicable by through this data mapping sheet, we can show them so that they can understand better and do the implementation. For example, like as I said that first of all, we need to identify what is source system and target system. And I hope you have understood. Source system is where the data will be sent. Target system is where the data is stored. So in our case, the source system would be ICS Bank, and the source field. Source field means from which field that we were data that we are sending it off. So it is user ID, right? So go ahead and write user ID source field. Yeah, user ID and the field target system. So field target system name called HTFC. As I said that the target system is nothing but where the data is stored. So the data will be stored from the source system in the target system called HTFC Bank. So you need to mention here target system, target system name, which is HTFC Bank. And target field, we were the stakeholder was proposed new field called new user ID. So this is where in the new user ID the data need to store. This user ID need to be stored from the source system. So we need to update that target field name. We were got a requirement with the new field called new user ID. Okay. And suppose if there will be a situation that stakeholders will also says that we want this as an optional or mandatory, something like that. So as a BA, you also need to ask this question: Is this mapping or sending or receiving the data is optional according to the business, or is it mandatory? They will confirm you. So accordingly, you need to write. So if it is mandatory, yes. If it is optional, then mention it as optional. And the business rule. So business rule means what exactly this need to be accepted. So the business rule could be here user ID. So user ID means obviously it should only include the numerical characters, numerical letters, right? It should not allow any alphabetical letters. So that is a basic thing. So what I have mentioned here in the business rule is must be numeric, because when we mention the business rule, accordingly the IT team will be implementing the logic. So if you won't mention business rule, there is a chance that system will allow also characters also, for special characters, for example. Yeah, for example, it might allow special characters, or it might allow alphabetical characters as well. So but we should not allow the system to consider in entering the by the users of the special characters or any characters except numerical values. So whatever that business rules that you have, you should specify in this business rule. Okay. So similarly, accordingly, you should do for rest of the things. I have done only for one situation, but if there is one more data that is going to be sent and received to target system from the source system, so whatever the details that are applicable, mandatory or business rules, if they are applicable, you should include one by one. So you need to add this in the Excel sheet. Okay, this data mapping was done by business analyst in the Excel sheet, and once you are completed with the data mapping, you should send it to the IT team, so they will review, understand and implement the logic. Okay, this is done and dusted. And once you are done, you should also do the testing. So before I proceed for introducing about the API testing, I would like to introduce about the tool where we use for API testing. That is nothing but Postman. Postman is a tool where we perform API testing. So this is one of the popular tool that has been used by so many companies regarding this API testing and building. So and this is free of access, and this is free of access, and you can also do the texting. For example, I'll show you exactly how the Postman tool looks like in the real time. You can go to the Postman and you can see all these details. Yeah, so this is how exactly the API looks like. the homepage of API in the Postman looks like. So, as a business analyst, your duty is to perform API testing. So, the situation which I have taken here, you need to also check from the backend point of view if it is working as expected or not, whether the data we are going to get and receive is as expected or not. You need to check. Okay, that is where business analyst will do API testing. So here you need to mention your URL. So this basically will be given by the IT team. So you need to take the URL from the IT team, and you need to mention here. Upon clicking on send button, you will see the response. Okay, so in order to understand whether the output was uh, working as expected or if you got any error. So here in the API, you will not be able to see in the Word format. It will be in the code format. Through that, you can identify the response. For example, yeah. So are you able to see here 200 as okay? So from these, you should identify that this is working, this API. So in the API, there is no word format where we can interpret the output or response. All we need to interpret and decide through codes. So there will be various codes that are available. Accordingly, you need to understand and decide the response. So in the API, if it is 200, that is successful. Successful. That means this is working as expected. Okay. Similarly, there will be other codes as well. You need to understand. Like we will be having a 302, 401, 404. Okay. And 201. 201 is for creating. So there will be some standard codes, guys. As a BA, you need to memorize all those, because especially when you're doing testing through this status code only, you can make a conclusion that whether it is working or not working, or if there is any problem, you will come to know from the status code only. So as a BA, you should memorize the status codes. Okay. And apart from that, we will also capture the screenshots wherever the output that is getting displayed. We will capture the screenshot and we will validate with our business requirement which stakeholder is provided. We will be validating if the data is matching as expected or not. We will also cross verify that. Okay, so and also I would like to highlight here that as of now the data is currently representing in the form of JSON format. So in the API there are multiple formats where we can able to interpret the data, but the most common uh, data formats which is widely used in the software companies were JSON or XML. So currently the one which I am showing you was JSON. It might be little bit difficulty, but when I was convert this into the XML format, things will be very easy and you can able to understand very easily. So the difference between JSON and XML you need to aware. So let me show you JSON and XML. Yeah. So currently, you can notice that XML consists of something somewhat little difficult to analyze what data that is currently visible in. But in the JSON, we can able to understand very clearly, which is very easy to understand in a simple English. So as a business analyst, you should also be familiar with the XML and JSON, and the difference also you need to know, because currently the system will display the output based on the data format that you are going to select in the API. So accordingly, you need to do it. Okay. To know more details about this, you should join my course, so which is going to start very soon, where I going to cover everything in detail about the API. So thank you for watching this video. Please watch and like the video. Thank you.